A red thread lies across a path in the forest. It is thin enough to miss, quiet enough to dismiss, and ordinary enough for the traveler to step over without thought. But the thread is tied to a bell miles ahead. Each time he ignores it, something far away begins to move. A meeting is rearranged. A person remembers his name. A road closes before he reaches it. By the time he realizes his life has changed direction, the first signal feels too small to matter. But that is how omens work. They do not always arrive as thunder. Sometimes the entire future turns because of a thread you nearly stepped over. There is a belief embedded so deeply into the way most people interpret reality that it has become invisible. It goes like this. A real sign must be undeniable. A real sign must stop you cold, shake your foundations, and leave no room for doubt. If it was subtle, it was probably nothing. If it was quiet, you imagined it. If it could be explained away, it should be. This belief feels reasonable. It feels protective even. It sounds like discernment. But it is one of the most costly misreadings a person can carry through their life, because it trains the attention to look in entirely the wrong direction. The mind, shaped by this belief, waits for the dramatic. It waits for the collision, the crisis, the undeniable moment of rupture. And while it is looking upward at the sky for lightning, the quiet thread across the forest floor has already begun to move. The bell has already rung. Something has already started that the conscious mind will not recognize for months. Think about the moments in your own life that changed everything. Not the moments that felt like change while they were happening, but the moments you later understood were pivots. In almost every case, the first signal came quietly. A name mentioned in passing, a book left open to a specific page, a conversation that felt slightly off its familiar rhythm, a restlessness that arrived without a name. You likely explained each of those away. You called them coincidences. You called them moods. You called them irrelevant details in an otherwise ordinary day. And perhaps the change came anyway, because the mechanism of the hidden signal does not require your conscious cooperation. But imagine what would have been different if you had known how to read those early threads. The false belief that only dramatic signs matter is not just a philosophical mistake. It is a perceptual filter that strips the richest layer of information from your daily experience. When the filter is in place, you walk through a world that is speaking to you constantly, and you hear almost none of it. You are waiting for the announcement when the message has already been delivered in a whisper. This belief was not invented in isolation. It was inherited from a culture that privileges the loud, the visible, and the undeniable. It was reinforced every time a dramatic story was told, and the quiet moments before it were edited out as unimportant. It was deepened every time you shared a subtle feeling, and someone nearby said you were overthinking it. After enough repetitions, the inner receiver begins to distrust its own sensitivity. But here is what the archive holds in its oldest records. The subtle signal comes first, precisely because it is meant to be engaged consciously. The dramatic rupture comes when the quiet thread has been ignored for too long. The bell rings quietly at first. It is only when no one answers that the structure begins to shift without permission. The dramatic event is not the primary signal. It is what happens when the primary signal is not received. There is another dimension to this false belief that is rarely named. It assumes that guidance must make logical sense immediately, that a real signal must point directly at the thing it concerns, that if you are being redirected toward a new career, The signal should arrive in the language of career. If you are being rerouted in love, the sign should appear as a person or a conversation. But genuine signals do not operate in linear translation. They operate in pattern, resonance, and symbolic accumulation. A persistent image of water has redirected careers. A recurring sense of heaviness in a specific room has ended relationships that no longer served. A melody heard 3 times in 4 days has opened a person to a grief they had sealed for years, and through that opening, something entirely new could finally enter. The signal does not always name the destination. It opens the door to the feeling that precedes it. When you release the false belief that only dramatic signals are real, something extraordinary begins to happen in your perception. The world does not become louder, it becomes more legible. You do not begin seeing signs everywhere in a frantic or superstitious way. You begin to feel the difference between background noise and a genuine transmission. You develop what the oldest practitioners of this literacy called signal sense, an inner recognition that something arriving is worth holding in your attention a moment longer. This is what the third library was built to restore, not a new belief to replace the old one, but a recovered capacity that was always yours. The ability to read reality not just at its surface, but at the layer where it is still in the process of becoming. To catch the thread before it pulls. To hear the bell before it rings. To stand at the threshold of a change you have not yet consciously identified and know with a calm and rooted certainty that something is already moving toward you. What you are about to receive in this codex is not a theory. It is not a spiritual philosophy built to comfort or inspire. It is a map. A precise, layered map of how hidden signals operate, how they accumulate into patterns, how those patterns prepare your entire system for a shift before your conscious mind has formed a single coherent thought about it, and how to engage with that process deliberately rather than stumbling through it blind. The map has 5 layers. You will learn each one in order because order matters here. This is not material to skim. It is material to receive the way you would receive instructions for navigating terrain you cannot see. Carefully, with full attention, with the understanding that each layer builds on the one before it. The first layer is the subtle omen itself. You will learn what a hidden signal actually is at the mechanical level, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a real movement in the field of your awareness and your life. You will understand why the field begins rearranging your path before your conscious mind has any language for what is changing. The second layer is the repeated thread. You will learn what happens when a signal recurs and why repetition is not accident, but amplification. You will understand why the same symbol, feeling, name, object, or disruption appearing twice is not coincidence, and why appearing 3 times is the field asking you to stop and pay full attention. The third layer is unconscious preparation. You will learn how your body, your emotions, and your deeper awareness begin preparing for a shift long before you consciously choose it. You will understand the specific ways this preparation disguises itself as restlessness, tiredness, sudden clarity, inexplicable grief, or a strange quiet that arrives without warning. The fourth layer is the path shift itself. You will see how all of these threads converge into a moment of actual change, and why that moment almost always feels both sudden and inevitable when it finally arrives. You will understand why people often say, looking back, that they saw it coming, even when they were convinced at the time that it came out of nowhere. The fifth layer is conscious response. This is where the protocol lives. You will receive a precise method for reading these signals, recording their repetition, checking their emotional resonance, and responding with small, aligned action rather than either ignoring the thread or overreacting to it. This is the layer that transforms signal literacy from awareness into practice. By the time you reach the end of this codex, you will be able to look back at your own recent months and identify the threads you walked over without recognizing them. You will also be able to look forward, not with the frantic certainty of someone demanding answers from reality, but with the calm readiness of someone who knows how to listen before the announcement is made. This map was drawn from the oldest records in the archive. It has been carried through many different systems and many different ages, each time wearing slightly different clothing, but always pointing at the same invisible mechanism. The field speaks before it acts. The path rearranges before you notice. The signal comes first. It has always come first. What you are receiving today is the language, the codex for reading it. The key for recognizing what has already been placed in front of you, perhaps more than once, perhaps more than you yet understand. If this language feels familiar, as though you have been waiting for this specific translation, subscribe to the third library. There are more codices waiting to be opened. Before a door opens, there is a shift in the air around it. Before life changes direction, there is a change in what the field arranges in your proximity. This is not poetic language. This is a description of a mechanism that operates with the consistency of a law, even if it has no name in conventional understanding. The law can be stated this way: the field that holds your path is not static. It responds, adjusts, and reorganizes itself in accordance with where you are being drawn and where you are being redirected, often before you have consciously registered either direction. The rearrangement begins at the level of signal. Small, quiet, precise signals that are placed within your range of perception in the days, weeks, and sometimes months before a meaningful shift. To understand this law, you must first understand that your life is not simply a sequence of random events that you interpret after the fact. It is a feedback system, a living, responsive system that communicates through the arrangement of what it places in your path. The content of your daily experience, the conversations that find you, the images that linger, the words that arrive unbidden. These are not decorations. They are the language of the field speaking. This field operates on a principle that can be called preparatory encoding. Before the change arrives at the material level, the field begins seeding the perceptual environment with signals that carry the frequency of what is coming. Not the literal content of the change, not a direct announcement, but the emotional, symbolic, and energetic texture of the thing that is approaching. Think of it this way: a composer does not begin a symphony with the loudest note. The introduction carries motifs, fragments of melody that the listener will not fully recognize until those same fragments return in the final movement, transformed and resolved. The signals that precede a major life shift operate the same way. They are the opening motifs of a movement that has not yet fully declared itself. The reason the field operates this way is deeper than preparation. It operates this way because the shift itself requires your participation at a level deeper than decision. It requires the gradual softening of an old identity, the quiet dismantling of a belief that no longer serves, the slow warming of an emotional frequency that was previously locked. These things cannot happen through announcement. They happen through immersion, and the signals are the first instrument of that immersion. Most people have experienced this law without having a name for it. You have likely felt it. A period of your life when something unnameable was stirring, when dreams grew strange and specific, when the same theme kept surfacing in books, in conversations, in the images that caught your attention. You perhaps dismissed it as mental noise, but if you trace those periods forward in time, you will almost always find that something significant shifted shortly after the stirring began. The law works whether you recognize it or not. The field does not require your conscious agreement to begin the preparatory sequence. It begins the sequence because the larger pattern of where you are going, governed by your deeper assumptions, your emotional frequencies, and your subconscious identity, has already initiated a change. The signals are simply the first visible manifestation of that invisible movement. This is a crucial distinction. The signal does not cause the change, it precedes it. It announces it in the frequency of symbol rather than the language of event. The signal is the field showing you where it is already going, offering you the opportunity to arrive at the shift consciously rather than be carried into it without understanding. When the field begins rearranging your path, it works through what can be called proximity installation. It places people, objects, ideas, and impressions within your proximity that carry resonance with the incoming shift. The resonance may be emotional, it may be thematic, it may be symbolic, but it is never truly random, even when it appears to be. The friend who mentions a city you have never considered 3 times in 2 weeks, and then you receive an invitation to visit that city, is not a coincidence. The field has installed proximity resonance. The same city, carried by 3 different voices, is the field repeating a signal at increasing volume until it reaches the threshold of your attention. The same principle applies to ideas. A concept you have never engaged with appears in a podcast you stumble onto accidentally. The next day, someone sends you an article on the same concept. A week later, a conversation turns to it. The field is encoding a frequency into your perceptual environment. Something in that concept is connected to where you are being drawn. The repetition is not accident, it is amplification. Now, here is where the law becomes even more precise. The preparatory sequence always operates in layers. The first signal is almost always the quietest. It is placed gently, with minimal disruption, as though the field is calibrating to see whether your attention is available. If that first signal passes unnoticed, the next will be placed more prominently. If that one passes too, the field will begin working at the level of experience rather than impression, creating minor disruptions, unexpected delays, small emotional reverberations that are harder to dismiss. This escalating sequence is not punishment. It is not the universe losing patience with you. It is the mechanism operating as it was designed to operate. Signal first, then pattern, then disruption, then event. Each stage exists because the stage before it was not received. The goal of the entire sequence is not to force you into a direction. It is to make the direction legible enough that you can choose it consciously. The law beneath the event also operates through what might be called threshold memory. Your subconscious mind does not process time the way your conscious mind does. It registers impressions without the judgment of irrelevance. It stores signals that the conscious mind dismissed as nothing. It holds a growing record of the repeated thread, the recurring symbol, the pattern that surfaced more than once, and it uses that stored record to begin adjusting your perception, your intuition, and your emotional responses before you have consciously reviewed the evidence. This is why sudden clarity often arrives without apparent cause. It is not sudden at all. It is the threshold moment when the accumulated subconscious record crosses into conscious recognition. The clarity feels instant because the mind did not follow its own preparation. But the preparation was happening beneath the surface for however long the signals had been accumulating. There is a further dimension to this law that concerns timing. The field does not operate on demand. The preparatory sequence begins when the conditions of your deeper pattern have reached a point of readiness for a shift. You may not feel ready. You may actively resist the idea of change. But if the subconscious encoding, the emotional frequency, and the accumulation of inner pressure have reached the threshold, the field will begin its sequence regardless of what the conscious mind believes it wants. This means that a signal appearing in your life right now may be connected to a change that your surface self has not yet admitted to itself. The signal is not asking your surface self for permission. It is speaking to the deeper layer of you that already knows what is being prepared. When you understand this, the experience of unexplained restlessness transforms entirely. It is no longer a problem to be solved. It is a signal to be read. It is the field's early transmission, informing the system that something is being rearranged at a level you cannot yet see. The restlessness is the bell ringing miles away, connected to a thread you have not yet found. The mechanism also operates in reverse, which is equally important to understand. When you are moving away from alignment, when the path you are insisting on diverges from the deeper pattern of where you are actually being drawn, the field also generates signals. But these are not signals of arrival. They are signals of friction. Persistent obstacles that appear not because the universe is blocking you arbitrarily, but because the direction you are forcing does not match the direction the field has already begun preparing. Forced paths generate a specific quality of obstruction. The effort increases disproportionately. Small problems multiply. Momentum refuses to arrive even when all the logical conditions seem correct. Energy drains faster than it can be restored. These are not signs of failure. They are redirectional signals. The field is saying, "Not here." The door you are forcing does not open from this side. This is why the law beneath the event cannot be understood through effort alone. The person who doubles down on force when signals of friction appear is not demonstrating commitment. They are demonstrating a disconnection from the preparatory mechanism. The person who pauses, notices the friction, and asks what the friction might be signaling. That person is engaging with the law as it was designed to be engaged. The preparatory sequence, the proximity installation, the escalating repetition, the threshold memory, the directional friction. These are all expressions of a single unified law. Reality adjusts before you notice. The path shifts before you choose. The future announces itself in the language of signal before it arrives in the language of event. And the signal always comes first. The most ancient traditions carried this knowledge in different forms. The reading of omens was never a superstition in its original form. It was a practice of field literacy, a skill for recognizing the preparatory transmission before the event it preceded. The practitioner was not looking for magical causation. They were looking for pattern correspondence, the resonance between what appeared in the perceptual environment and what was already in motion at the invisible level of the field. This is the law you are being asked to remember. Not learn for the first time, but remember. Because there is a part of you that has always known it. A part of you that paused at the thread in the path and felt, for just a moment, that it mattered. The codex in this library is not introducing a new idea. It is restoring a capacity that was always yours. The capacity to read what is already being written before the ink becomes visible. The signal arrives. It is quiet, precise, and placed with the subtle accuracy that characterizes every genuine transmission from the field. And the person looking directly at it turns away. Not because they are careless, not because they are unintelligent, but because they have been trained across years and sometimes decades to look somewhere else entirely. Understanding why most people misread the hidden signal is not an exercise in criticism. It is an essential part of recovering signal literacy. Because until you understand the specific filters that strip the signal of its legibility, you cannot dismantle them. And until you dismantle them, even the most obvious transmission will appear as noise. The first and most pervasive reason people misread the signal is the expectation of drama. The mind trained to expect dramatic guidance will look past the quiet thread every time. It has built an internal picture of what a real sign looks like. It looks like a lightning bolt. It sounds like a clear inner voice issuing specific instructions. It arrives with the emotional impact of a revelation that cannot be argued with. When the real signal arrives as a mild but persistent curiosity, a repeated word, a slight but consistent discomfort in a specific context, the dramatic signal filter dismisses it immediately. This expectation was installed gradually. It was installed by stories that edited out the quiet first chapter and began with the crisis. It was installed by the way pivotal moments are narrated in retrospect, always beginning at the dramatic turning point rather than at the subtle thread that preceded it by weeks. The drama receives the story. The thread receives nothing. And so the mind concludes, without ever fully forming the thought, that drama is where guidance lives. The second reason is the demand for immediate legibility. When a signal arrives, the interpreting mind asks instantly, "What does this mean, and where does it point?" If no clear answer arrives in the first few seconds, the signal is filed under irrelevant and attention moves on. But genuine signals from the field almost never arrive with their full meaning attached. They arrive as fragments, as seeds, as the first note of a longer composition. They require time, repetition, and other signals before their full meaning becomes clear. The mind that demands instant legibility will always misread the signal, not because it lacks intelligence, but because it is applying the wrong timeline. It is expecting a telegram when the field is sending a letter. The letter will make sense when it has been fully written and delivered. The telegram never comes. The third reason is the discrediting of internal response. Many people have learned to distrust the quiet inner response that arises when a genuine signal is received. They have been taught through various forms of social correction that inner responses are unreliable, emotional, irrational, or embarrassing. The person who feels a strong but unexplainable pull toward something and then immediately talks themselves out of it because they cannot justify it logically is experiencing this pattern in its clearest form. The inner response to a genuine signal has a very specific quality. It is not loud, it is not anxious, it is not desperate. It is a kind of quiet recognition, something like the sensation of a key fitting into a lock that you did not know you were carrying. The moment it is felt and then suppressed or dismissed, the signal has been misread at the most fundamental level, the level of resonance. The fourth reason is the contamination of anxiety. Anxiety generates noise that resembles signal. When a person is in a state of chronic anxiety, almost everything that enters the perceptual field becomes potentially meaningful, and all of it is felt as warning. The anxious mind picks up threads everywhere and immediately ties them to threat. This produces a state of perceptual overwhelm in which real signals and fear projections become indistinguishable. Many people have experienced this and drawn the wrong conclusion from it. They have concluded that their sensitivity to signals was the problem. They have decided to stop looking for signs altogether, to become more rational, to treat everything as coincidence. But the solution to anxiety-contaminated perception is not the abandonment of signal literacy. It is the development of discernment, the ability to distinguish the resonance of a genuine signal from the static of fear. You will receive that discernment later in this codex. The fifth reason is the social pressure of explanation. When a person begins to notice a signal, the social reflex is almost always to explain it, to find the rational account that makes it ordinary. The friend who keeps being mentioned in different conversations is explained by the fact that they are a mutual acquaintance of many people. The recurring image of a door is explained by the architecture book sitting on the shelf. The persistent feeling that something is ending is explained by the season, by tiredness, by the stressful month. Every explanation that successfully makes the signal ordinary is a misreading, not because explanations are wrong in themselves, but because they are applied to close the experience rather than stay with it. The signal is meant to be held in awareness for longer than the time it takes to find a dismissal. The moment of dismissal is the moment the thread is lost. The sixth reason is the misunderstanding of timing. People expect that if a signal is real, it will be followed quickly by the event it points toward. If someone mentions a city as a potential destination and a week passes with no invitation to that city, the mind concludes the signal was meaningless. But the field does not operate on the timelines that the impatient conscious mind prefers. The preparatory sequence may unfold over weeks, months, or in some cases, years. The signal in one season may be preparing for a shift in a season that feels impossibly far away. The person who learned to read timing as a component of the signal, not as a measure of the signal's validity, is the person who can hold a thread with patience rather than abandon it, because it is not yet shown where it leads. The seventh reason sits deeper than all the others. Most people misread the hidden signal because they have not yet understood that reality is a communication system. They have been living inside the system without ever receiving the manual. They have treated their daily experience as a series of random events to be managed, endured, or enjoyed, but not as a field of information that is actively participating in their direction. Once this understanding shifts, even partially, the entire quality of perception changes. The same events that were previously experienced as random begin to reveal their patterning. The same signals that were previously dismissed as coincidence begin to register as worthy of attention. The same inner responses that were previously suppressed as irrational begin to be recognized as the most precise instruments available for navigating the preparatory sequence. This is why the misreading of the hidden signal is not ultimately a problem of perception. It is a problem of operating assumption. The person who assumes reality is random will never develop signal literacy, because the assumption itself blocks the perceptual capacity before it can function. The person who begins to hold reality as a responsive system will find that the signals were always there. They were simply waiting for a receiver with the right calibration. There is one more form of misreading that deserves specific attention because it is subtle and it masquerades as wisdom. It is the misreading that comes from spiritual bypassing, from the use of metaphysical vocabulary without the actual engagement of discernment. This is the person who talks frequently about signs and omens and universal guidance, but who has never developed a genuine method for distinguishing signal from projection, pattern from coincidence, or inner knowing from wishful thinking. This form of misreading is dangerous in a different way than dismissiveness. Dismissiveness causes the person to miss the signal entirely. Spiritual bypassing causes the person to assign signal status to everything and therefore read nothing clearly. The signal gets lost in the noise of its own inflation. Every coincidence becomes a cosmic confirmation. Every obstacle becomes a test. Every outcome, regardless of its nature, becomes proof of whatever the person already believed before the event occurred. Genuine signal literacy lives precisely between these two failure modes, between the dismissal that sees nothing and the inflation that sees everything. That precise middle territory is what the Omen thread protocol is designed to help you navigate. But before the protocol, you need to see the examples, because the signal, when it is genuine, has qualities that you will recognize once they have been named for you. Begin with words, not speeches, not conversations, single words that surface with unusual persistence. A person hears the word threshold in a song they have not listened to in years. The next morning, someone uses the same word in a text message about something entirely unrelated. 3 days later, they open a book they received as a gift months ago and have not touched, and the first chapter is titled, The Threshold. They have heard this word 3 times in less than a week in 3 completely unconnected contexts. This is not a coincidence to be filed away. This is a signal operating at the level of linguistic repetition. The field is installing a concept into the perceptual environment. The concept of threshold carries within it the suggestion of a crossing point, a moment of transition between what was and what is becoming. Before the person has consciously identified that they are standing at such a crossing, the field has already begun encoding the frequency. Move now to recurring memories. Not memories that arise because you are thinking about the past, but memories that surface unbidden, unprovoked, and at unexpected moments. You are in the middle of a routine task, and a specific memory arrives with unusual clarity and emotional weight. You were not thinking about that time. You were not reminded of it by anything in the environment you can identify. It simply appeared. When a memory surfaces this way more than once in a short period, it carries signal. The field is not asking you to relive the past. It is asking you to look at what that memory contains. What feeling did it hold? What decision point did it represent? What aspect of who you were in that moment is relevant to who you are being asked to become now? The unbidden memory is often a mirror, placed not toward the past, but toward the present layer of your becoming. Consider the example of repeated objects. A woman who is navigating a significant decision about leaving a long-term relationship begins to notice keys appearing in unusual places and unusual forms. A book about identity has a key on its cover. Her neighbor asks her to hold a spare key for a week. Someone sends her an image of an antique key as part of a decorative mood board. A key falls from a pocket she did not know contained one. None of these individual appearances would be significant in isolation. but received together within a compressed window of time, they constitute a pattern. The object that keeps appearing is carrying symbolic weight that corresponds to something alive in her interior. The key, as a symbol, speaks of access, of opening, of the difference between locked and unlocked. The field is not dictating her choice. It is reflecting the frequency of the question she has not yet spoken aloud. Unexpected invitations deserve their own attention. An unexpected invitation is one that arrives without apparent cause from the external logic of your life. You are invited to an event in a field you do not currently inhabit. Someone you barely know reaches out and asks you to participate in a project that seems peripheral to your current direction. A chance encounter leads to an offer that makes no practical sense, yet carries an unmistakable pull. When an unexpected invitation generates what can only be described as a quiet interior yes that you then talk yourself out of, pay close attention. The talking yourself out of it is worth examining more carefully than the invitation itself. The field placed the invitation. Your response to it revealed something precise about the edge of your current identity and where it is being invited to expand. Minor delays are among the most overlooked signals in the entire archive. A delay that reroutes you, that places you somewhere you were not planning to be at a time you were not expecting, often functions as a precision instrument. You miss a meeting and find yourself in a conversation that opens something you had not expected to find. You arrive late to an event and speak to the only person in the room who is connected to the exact thing you have been quietly considering. The delay was not punishment. It was placement. The field rerouted you with surgical precision and placed you at the exact coordinate where the next signal was waiting. The person who experiences a minor delay only as inconvenience and not also as potential instruction will arrive at the destination without receiving the signal that the delay was designed to deliver. Now, consider strange emotional nudges. These are perhaps the most intimate and easily dismissed of all the signal forms. A sudden, sourceless sadness in the middle of an otherwise ordinary day. A wave of inexplicable longing for something you cannot name. A flash of excitement, bright and brief, arising in response to a stimulus that should not logically generate excitement. A drop in energy so specific and sudden that it feels like a signal rather than a symptom. These emotional nudges are the field operating at the deepest register of signal. They are not moods produced by chemistry alone. They are responses from the interior to something that the subconscious has already registered and is attempting to communicate upward into conscious awareness. The sudden longing is often pointing toward a frequency that is missing from your current life, and that is connected to what is being prepared. The inexplicable excitement is often the subconscious recognizing something before the conscious mind has had time to form a thought about it. Think of a man who has spent 15 years in a profession that once felt aligned. One afternoon, without any precipitating event, he feels an overwhelming and inexplicable grief while walking to his car. He's not sad about anything he can name. He's not thinking about anything difficult. The grief arrives fully formed and leaves within minutes. He forgets it by evening. 3 months later, he resigns from his position. Looking back, he identifies that afternoon as the first signal. The grief was not about the present. It was a transmission from a future self, already grieving the years spent away from something truer, already preparing him for the acknowledgement that would eventually become unavoidable. The field had spoken. He had not yet had the language to receive it. Consider how names function as signals. Specific names that appear in your environment with unusual frequency carry the same kind of encoding as words and objects. A person's name surfacing in 3 unrelated conversations within a week is not always about that specific person. Sometimes it is about what that person represents to you. What quality, what period of your life, what unresolved question they are associated with. The field is using the name as a symbol, pointing not at the person but at the theme the person carries in your interior. Look also at the signal quality of songs. A particular song that surfaces with unusual repetition in unexpected contexts, on different devices, in different locations, at different times of day, is not simply a popular song receiving normal radio play. When the same piece of music finds you in 3 or 4 unrelated ways in a short span of time, it is worth pausing to ask what that music means to you. What state it induces, what memory or feeling it is connected to. The field is not broadcasting a favorite song. It is broadcasting the emotional frequency carried by that song. Consider the specific quality of dreams that arrive during a period of preparatory encoding. These dreams have a different texture than ordinary dreams. They are often unusually vivid, unusually coherent, and carry an emotional residue that lingers into the waking day in a way that ordinary dreams do not. They are often not literal. A dream about water is rarely about water. A dream about a house is rarely about the specific house that appeared. These dreams are the subconscious, showing you the interior landscape of the shift being prepared in its own symbolic language. The person who wakes from such a dream and immediately attempts to decode it literally will often find nothing. The person who receives the emotional residue of the dream and allows it to be held in awareness throughout the day will often find that something in the waking environment resonates with it in a way that clarifies the signal. There is a category of signal that arrives through the behavior of people who are unaware they are carrying it. A friend who is usually reliable suddenly and inexplicably withdraws at a moment when, had they remained present, you would have continued in a direction the field is redirecting you away from. A stranger who gives you a specific piece of information you were not seeking that turns out to be precisely relevant to something you have been quietly holding. A colleague who mentions a resource, a place, a person, or an idea at exactly the moment when your interior has become receptive to it. These are examples of what might be called signal carriers, people who are not consciously participating in the transmission, but whose movements and words are being arranged by the field into the correct position. They did not intend to deliver a signal. They simply appeared at the right coordinate and said the right word. The field used them the way a river uses a stone, not with intention on the stone's part, but with precision in the arrangement. Pay attention also to what suddenly disappears from your life. The signal is not always something that appears. Sometimes it is something that quietly removes itself. A habit that you suddenly have no desire to continue. A friendship that begins to feel distant without any identifiable conflict. A source of entertainment or comfort that no longer satisfies in the way it once did. These quiet removals are the field clearing the perceptual and energetic environment of what is no longer aligned with where you are being drawn. The clearing that precedes a new arrival is itself a signal. When things begin falling away without struggle, without drama, without a clear cause, something new is approaching close enough that the old frequency is being naturally released. This is the field preparing space, The emptiness that follows is not a problem, it is a preparation. Consider also the signal delivered through physical location, the place that keeps appearing in your thoughts without logical cause. The city, the landscape, the type of environment that you find yourself imagining with unusual regularity. The feeling, when you visit a specific place, that something in you recognizes it in a way that your history with that place does not justify. These are not idle fantasies. They are location resonance signals, the field indicating that a specific coordinate in the world is connected to something in your path. Throughout all of these examples, there is one quality that appears consistently in every genuine signal. That quality is resonance. A signal does not simply attract the attention, it generates a response in the interior. Something in the body, the chest, the gut, or the throat responds. The response may be subtle. It may last only a moment before the dismissing mind reclaims dominance. But it is there, and it is repeatable. Show the person the same signal on 3 separate occasions, and the same interior response will arise each time, slightly stronger, slightly more insistent, until it either becomes too strong to ignore or is buried deeply enough that the field escalates to the next stage. Every example in this section is a thread. Every thread, if followed with patience and discernment, leads somewhere. Not always immediately, not always obviously. But the thread was placed there because it is connected. That is the only reason it recurs. That is the only reason it generates resonance. That is the only reason it finds you in 3 different contexts in the same week. The field does not waste threads. Every one it places is connected to something real. The pattern does not announce itself. It does not arrive wearing a label. It does not present itself as a pattern at all when it first begins. This is the first thing you must understand about how the hidden signal accumulates into something recognizable. And it is the reason most people only see the pattern in retrospect, after the shift has already occurred. The pattern appears first as a single anomaly, one experience that is slightly off its expected rhythm, one word that surfaces in an unexpected context, one feeling that arrives without a visible cause. Taken alone, this single anomaly does not constitute a pattern and should not be treated as one. It is the first thread. You receive it. You note it. You do not yet assign meaning to it. The second appearance changes the quality of attention the anomaly deserves. When the same word, object, theme, feeling, or disruption appears a second time within a reasonably compressed window of time, the mind should register an upgrade in attention. Not alarm, not urgent interpretation, simply a quiet elevation in the awareness that this is no longer a single event. Something is beginning to repeat. The third appearance is the field's clearest invitation to engagement. 3 appearances of the same signal, even in slightly varied forms, constitutes what the archive calls a thread confirmation. The bell has rung 3 times. The thread is no longer invisible. This is the moment when active but unhurried attention is warranted. Not immediate action, not the demand for meaning. Simply the willingness to sit with the pattern and begin asking what quality runs through all 3 appearances. In the weeks before a significant relocation, the pattern often appears through geography. Specific cities, landscapes, or types of places begin surfacing in the environment without logical cause. A documentary featuring a city, a friend who moves there, a piece of music from that region. Each alone is trivial. Together, they are the field encoding a directional resonance. Before a significant career shift, the pattern often appears through theme. The same concept keeps arriving from unrelated sources: leadership, healing, construction, teaching, creation. One appearance is information, 2 appearances is a signal, 3 appearances is a pattern asking to be acknowledged. The concept is not appearing because the mind is fixated on it. It is appearing because the field is embedding the frequency of what is approaching. Before relationship transition, whether beginning or ending, the pattern often appears through emotional contrast. The person entering your life before a new love arrives will not necessarily be that love, but something about their presence, their conversation, or their energy begins preparing the interior landscape for a frequency that has been absent. The contrast between your current emotional state and the state generated by this new presence is the signal. Before a significant creative awakening, the pattern often appears through sudden aesthetic response. Things that once held no emotional charge begin to generate it. A type of painting, a particular piece of architecture, a form of writing, a genre of music. The aesthetic pull is not a preference forming, it is a frequency being recognized. The field is showing you the texture of what is approaching by placing it in the aesthetic register where your defenses are lower. Before a health-related shift, the pattern often appears through the body rather than the environment. A persistent and localized physical sensation that does not correspond to any identifiable cause. A change in sleep patterns that carries a specific emotional quality. A sudden alteration in appetite or energy that feels different from ordinary fluctuation. These are not symptoms to be pathologized in this context. They are the body registering the preparatory encoding before the conscious mind has accessed it. When physical signals of this nature arise, the appropriate response is twofold. First, engage with grounded responsibility, consulting with appropriate practitioners if the physical signal persists or intensifies. Second, hold the question of what the body may also be attempting to communicate from within the preparatory framework. These two responses are not in conflict. Caring for the physical form and reading it as a signal are simultaneous practices, not competing ones. The pattern of hidden signals also appears through what changes in the way others perceive you. People who knew you well begin responding to you slightly differently. Questions they ask shift in their quality. The way they describe you to others, information that sometimes travels back, begins carrying slightly different language. You are being seen as someone in transition before you have announced any transition, because the frequency of your inner state has begun to shift in ways that are perceptible to others, even when they cannot name what they are perceiving. Another form the pattern takes is the specific quality of what you find yourself unable to continue. Not a dramatic cessation, but a quiet withdrawal of genuine interest. The activity, relationship, food, environment, or media that previously held you without effort suddenly requires a kind of will to maintain that was never previously necessary. The engagement that was once natural is now a performance. This effortful maintenance is a signal. The field is withdrawing the frequency of the old resonance because the new frequency is approaching, and the two cannot fully coexist. Look also at the pattern that appears in what keeps being unavailable, the door that keeps being closed when you reach for it, the timing that consistently fails, the people who keep being not quite right for the role you need filled. Persistent unavailability of a specific kind is not a signal of failure. It is a signal of direction. The field is making one direction continuously effortful, while leaving another direction quietly accessible. Most people experience the unavailability as evidence that they should try harder. The signal is the opposite. The specific repeated unavailability is the field redirecting attention. The pattern before a spiritual shift is among the most distinctive. It tends to appear as an inexplicable dissatisfaction with previously satisfying frameworks. Answers that once felt complete begin to feel insufficient. Practices that once generated genuine resonance begin to feel mechanical. The people who once seemed to be guiding teachers begin to feel like peers, or even, in some cases, like voices from a direction you have already traveled. This is not ingratitude. It is the signal that the interior has grown beyond the current container and needs a larger one. The pattern also appears in what you begin to dream about in the weeks before a significant shift. Dreams become more vivid, more emotionally resonant, and more symbolically consistent. They begin to use recurring imagery. The same room, the same person, the same action, the same quality of light. Recurring dream imagery in the preparatory period is the subconscious processing the incoming frequency and attempting to communicate it to the waking mind in the only language it has unimpeded access to during sleep. There is a specific quality to the timing of signals that is worth naming. Genuine signals tend to cluster. They do not arrive with perfect spacing like calendar appointments. They cluster within compressed windows of days or weeks and then go quiet for a period, and then cluster again. This clustering pattern is significant. The quiet periods between clusters are not signals that the pattern has ended. They are integration periods, moments when the field pauses its transmission to allow the interior to process what has already been received. If you notice a cluster of signals followed by a period of quiet, do not conclude that you misread the pattern. Continue holding what was received during the cluster and wait. The next cluster will confirm whether the original pattern carries genuine signal or was a temporary convergence of coincidences. If the theme returns in the next cluster, even in slightly different form, the thread is confirmed. The pattern of the hidden signal most often resolves not as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet certainty that accumulates over time. You do not usually wake one morning with a thunderous understanding of the direction you have been shown. You wake one morning and realize that the uncertainty you have been living with has silently departed. The direction has settled into clarity without a specific moment of arrival. This is the signature of a genuine signal pattern. It resolves into knowing rather than announcement. Write in the comments the word thread if you have ever sensed a pattern repeating in your life before you understood where it was leading. The hidden signal does not only point outward at a destination, it points inward at the present condition of whoever is receiving it. What the pattern reveals about you is as important as what it reveals about where you are going, because the two cannot be separated. The direction of the field and the interior state of the person are not independent variables. They are in continuous conversation. When you begin to notice that a particular type of signal recurs in your experience, the nature of that signal reveals something precise about where your interior attention is currently concentrated, even below the threshold of conscious awareness. A person who keeps receiving signals connected to departure is carrying, somewhere beneath their surface certainty, an awareness that something in their current arrangement is complete. The signals do not plant this awareness, they reveal it. They surface what was already present at a level the conscious mind had not yet admitted. This is one of the most disorienting aspects of signal literacy for those encountering it for the first time. The discovery that the signals you have been receiving are reflections of your own interior state can feel, initially, like a collapse of mystery. If the signal is related to my own inner world, does that make it less significant? The answer is the opposite. It makes it more significant. The field is showing you the most precise map of your own interior that exists, rendered in the language of pattern, symbol, and repetition. What you are most afraid of losing tends to generate a specific quality of signal. If your deepest unspoken fear concerns the loss of security, the signals you receive will often cluster around themes of foundation, structure, and groundedness. If your deepest unspoken fear concerns invisibility, the signals will cluster around themes of recognition, of being seen, of voices and names. The fear does not create the signal, but the frequency of the fear creates a resonance that the field reflects back with the same precision that a mirror reflects a face. When you recognize the signals you have been receiving and ask what quality of interior experience they correspond to, you receive a diagnostic of extraordinary precision. You see where your subconscious attention has been concentrated without your conscious direction. You see what the deeper layer of you has been preparing to release, to reclaim, or to acknowledge. You see the frontier of your own becoming, marked in the language of pattern. What the signal pattern also reveals is the location of your resistance. The signals that you consistently dismiss, explain away, or respond to with anxiety rather than curiosity are almost always pointing at the area where your resistance is most deeply lodged. The person who keeps receiving signals connected to creative expression and who keeps deflecting them with practical reasoning is revealing the specific territory where the subconscious identity has a barrier. The barrier is not the dismissal. The barrier is the belief beneath the dismissal. What does the barrier say? It says something like, "That is not for me," or "That direction is for people who have something I do not," or "Wanting that is dangerous because I have wanted it before and it did not come." The signal keeps returning because the field is attempting to address the barrier, not the surface behavior. Every dismissal is information. It shows you precisely where the most important work of interior recalibration is waiting. The pattern also reveals the quality of your current attachment. When a signal repeatedly points toward something specific, and your response is urgent, almost desperate, grasping, that urgency reveals an attachment that is operating from scarcity. The signal itself may be genuine, but the quality of your response to it is showing you that you are relating to the thing the signal points toward from a frequency of lack rather than readiness. The work is not to pursue the direction harder, it is to address the frequency from which you are receiving the signal. Conversely, when a signal points toward something and your response is calm, curious, and quietly confident, even if the thing it points toward is large or unlikely by conventional measure, that quality of response reveals that you are in genuine alignment with the frequency. The absence of desperation is not indifference, it is readiness. Readiness has a lightness that grasping never achieves. The signals you receive during periods of grief reveal something that deserves specific attention. Grief creates a particular quality of inner opening. The defenses that ordinarily filter and mediate experience are temporarily reduced. This means that signal reception during genuine grief is often unusually clear and direct. The person in grief who notices a pattern of signals and can hold them with even partial equanimity is receiving information in an unusually unobstructed way. This is not the universe capitalizing on pain. It is the field reaching you at the moment when the channel is most open. What the signal reveals about you during such periods is what has been softened by the loss, what attachment has released its grip, what old certainty has loosened, and what new frequency is able to enter through the opening that the grief has created. This is why the oldest traditions understood grief not only as an ending, but as a portal. The signal that arrives during grief is often one of the most significant you will receive, because it finds you in your most receptive condition. The pattern of hidden signals also reveals what you are being prepared for, not only what you are moving away from. Preparation signals carry a specific interior quality that distinguishes them from redirectional signals. They generate a sense of expansion rather than contraction. They arrive with a quality of invitation rather than warning. The interior response to them is not dread or urgency, but something that might be described as a quiet excitement mixed with reverence, as though a door is opening to a room you have always sensed was there but never found the way into. If you are receiving expansion signals right now, this moment in the codex is an important one, because what those signals are revealing about you is that your interior has cleared enough space for the new frequency to begin its encoding. The old resistance has not necessarily disappeared, but it has loosened its grip sufficiently that the field has begun the next stage of the preparatory sequence. This is a significant threshold. Acknowledge it quietly. Do not announce it. Hold it. The signal pattern also reveals the relationship between your conscious belief and your subconscious assumption. The conscious mind may believe it wants a specific change. It may actively pursue it, think about it constantly, and consider it a clear intention. But if the subconscious assumption does not match the stated intention, the signals will reveal the discrepancy. They will point not toward the consciously desired outcome, but toward the deeper terrain where the real interior work is needed. This is why signal literacy is not a shortcut to manifestation. It is a mirror of the true interior state. The person who reads the signals honestly will sometimes find that the field is pointing in a direction that the ego does not prefer. They will sometimes find that what is being prepared for them is not what they have been consciously insisting upon. And this discovery, while often initially uncomfortable, is the most valuable information the field can deliver. It shows the gap between the surface desire and the deeper readiness, closing this section with the most important revelation the signal pattern offers. What it ultimately reveals about you is your current level of readiness to receive what is approaching. Readiness is not a fixed quality. It is a state of interior alignment, of congruence between what the conscious mind holds and what the subconscious body carries. The signals that keep returning are not repeating, because the field is impatient with you. They are repeating because you are not yet fully ready to receive what they are pointing toward. Every repetition is an invitation to move 1 degree closer to readiness, and readiness, when it arrives, does so with the same quiet certainty as the pattern itself. Not everything that feels like a signal is one. This is one of the most important distinctions in the entire codex, and it is the one most frequently omitted from discussions of synchronicity and omens, perhaps because naming it feels like it undermines the architecture. It does not. It strengthens it. A practice that cannot distinguish genuine signal from distortion is not a practice. It is a superstition. The first and most prevalent source of false signal is obsessive pattern seeking. The mind that has been introduced to signal literacy without the corresponding development of discernment will begin finding patterns everywhere. Every coincidence becomes a message. Every recurrence becomes a confirmation. Every number, every bird, every color, every name begins to feel charged with specific meaning. This is not signal literacy. This is pattern fever, and it generates a form of perceptual noise that is nearly impossible to navigate within. The distinguishing quality of obsessive pattern seeking is a quality of urgency and escalation. The genuine signal tends toward stillness. It arrives, it recurs, and it rests quietly in awareness without requiring immediate action or interpretation. The false pattern generated by obsessive seeking requires constant feeding. Each new appearance must be found, analyzed, and added to the accumulating edifice of meaning. The moment you stop looking, the meaning seems to dissolve, which is itself a signal. Genuine signals do not dissolve when attention is withdrawn. They remain quiet and patient until the next encounter. The second source of distortion is anxiety. Anxiety is a perceptual filter that assigns significance to everything that passes through it. A person in a heightened state of anxiety will experience the world as a field saturated with warnings. The black car that appears 3 mornings in a row becomes an omen. The fact that someone does not respond to a message within an expected window becomes a sign of rejection or danger. The persistent appearance of a specific number becomes either a cosmic guarantee or a cosmic threat, depending on the anxiety's current orientation. Anxiety-generated false signals share a specific emotional quality. They generate tension and urgency in the body, rather than the quiet resonance of genuine reception. The body contracts around them rather than opening. The response is something close to dread or desperate hope rather than calm recognition. If a signal consistently generates anxiety, contraction, or a sense of impending catastrophe, the signal itself may be real, but the interpretation is being distorted by fear. The work is not to suppress the anxiety and force yourself to read the signal calmly. The work is to address the anxiety's source so that the perceptual field can clear enough for genuine discernment to function. Random novelty is a third source of confusion. When something unusual appears in the environment, the mind's pattern recognition system immediately flags it as potentially significant. This is a biological function, not a metaphysical one. The unusual object, the unexpected encounter, the statistically rare event will generate a feeling of significance regardless of whether it carries genuine signal. This feeling can be easily mistaken for the quiet recognition that characterizes real signal reception. The distinguishing factor is repetition and resonance. A single unusual event is not a signal, it is an anomaly. An anomaly may become the first thread of a genuine pattern, or it may remain a single unusual event with no further development. The practice requires you to wait, to observe whether the anomaly recurs, to note whether it generates genuine interior resonance each time it appears, or whether the initial feeling of significance fades when the novelty does. Projection is another significant source of distortion. Projection occurs when you bring a desired outcome to the reading of signals rather than bringing open attention. You want a specific relationship to proceed, and so you read every subsequent event as confirmation of its correctness. You want a specific opportunity to manifest, and so you interpret every adjacent event as an endorsement. The field speaks in the direction you have already decided it must speak, because you are not listening, you are selecting. The test for projection is simple, but requires honest self-inquiry. Ask this: if this signal were pointing in the opposite direction, would I be equally willing to receive it? If the answer is no, if the thought of the signal pointing away from what you want produces immediate resistance or the desire to reinterpret it, then you are in projection. This does not mean the desired outcome is wrong. It means that the signals you are reading are being filtered through your preference rather than received with open attention. There is also a form of distortion that comes from cultural imposition. Certain symbols carry strong cultural or religious meaning that has been installed through upbringing, media, or tradition. When these symbols appear in the environment, the culturally installed meaning fires automatically before genuine discernment can operate. A person raised in a tradition that associates owls with death will feel the cultural imposition fire when an owl appears, whether or not the symbol is carrying that particular signal in their personal field. A person raised in a tradition that associates white flowers with purity will automatically read them that way, regardless of what the field is actually communicating. Signal literacy requires you to develop a personal symbolic language rather than simply inheriting a collective one. This does not mean collective symbolic associations are always wrong. Sometimes they correspond with what the field is transmitting, but it means they should not be applied automatically without checking against genuine interior resonance. What does this symbol mean to you specifically in the context of your own interior landscape? That question is the correct starting point, not what does this symbol mean according to an external system. The distortion of forced meaning deserves specific attention because it is particularly tempting in difficult moments. When life is painful, confusing, or in a state of prolonged stasis, the desire to find meaning in signals becomes intense. The pain wants a story, the confusion wants a map, and so the mind reaches for symbols and patterns and reads into them whatever would most relieve the distress. This is not signal literacy. It is the use of symbol as painkiller. Forced meaning produces interpretations that feel significant and relieving in the moment, but tend to unravel quickly under the pressure of continued events. The pattern that was supposed to confirm a resolution leads instead to further complication. The symbol that was supposed to signal arrival leads to continued waiting. The interpretation that was supposed to provide clarity leads to greater confusion because it was built on what was needed rather than what was actually transmitted. The most important calibration tool in the discernment of genuine signal from distortion is time. Genuine signals are patient. They do not require you to act immediately. They do not generate panic when you take time to sit with them. They remain consistent in their quality across multiple encounters. The meaning they carry deepens over time, rather than evaporating when the initial emotional charge fades. If a signal that seemed significant 3 weeks ago now feels empty or arbitrary, it was most likely a distortion rather than a genuine transmission. Genuine signals also remain coherent across multiple registers. A genuine signal will resonate in the body, in the emotional field, and in the quality of subsequent events. A distortion tends to resonate in only one register. It may feel exciting in the mind while the body remains neutral. It may generate emotional charge while the subsequent events provide no corresponding development. The multi-register coherence of a genuine signal is one of its most reliable distinguishing features. Apply this awareness not to make you cautious about every signal you receive, but to make you more precise. The goal of discernment is not the elimination of signal reception. It is the refinement of it. A person with genuine signal literacy does not see fewer patterns. They see more clearly. They waste less energy on distortions and can hold more attention for what is actually being transmitted. That precision is what transforms signal literacy from an interesting practice into a genuine navigational tool. The Omen thread protocol is not a ritual. It is not a belief system. It is not a framework for interpreting everything that crosses your path. It is a precise and sequential method for engaging with the preparatory signals that the field places in your perceptual environment, processing them with discernment, and responding in a way that is aligned without being reactive. The protocol consists of 6 stages. Each stage builds on the one before it. Each stage has a specific function and a specific failure mode. You will receive all 6 in order. This is the map for navigating from the first quiet anomaly to a grounded and aligned response. The first stage is notice the anomaly. This is simpler to state than it is to practice because it requires a quality of attention that most daily functioning does not cultivate. The anomaly is the first appearance of something that is slightly, quietly, unmistakably off its expected rhythm. A word that surfaces where it does not belong, a feeling that arrives without a cause you can identify, an object appearing in an unexpected context, a name spoken once by someone who should not know it. To notice the anomaly, you must first have a baseline. You must have some sense of what the ordinary rhythm of your environment feels like, so that the departure from it can register. This is developed through the practice of what might be called settled attention, the habit of being present enough in your daily experience that you can distinguish between the ordinary and the slightly extraordinary. Without this baseline, even dramatic signals can pass through a mind that is too distracted to feel the departure. When an anomaly is noticed, the single required response is to hold it lightly in awareness, not to analyze it, not to immediately interpret it, not to tell anyone about it, not to search for its meaning, simply to register it, to say internally, something arrived here, I received it, and then continue with the ordinary rhythm of the day. The second stage is record the repetition. The archive has a strict rule on this. Do not trust memory for this stage. Memory is selective, emotional, and easily revised by subsequent events. What you need is a physical record, a simple private journal, or a dedicated section of a notes application on any device you carry. The record should be brief and factual. The date, the signal described without interpretation, the context in which it appeared. Nothing more. When you record a signal without interpretation at the first appearance, you preserve its original form. You prevent the interpreting mind from immediately bending it toward a preferred meaning. You create a factual archive that can later be reviewed with the clarity that time provides. This record is not meant to be read daily. It is meant to exist, quietly accumulating, available for review when the pattern becomes visible. The physical act of recording also serves a secondary function that is worth understanding. It communicates to the subconscious mind that this arrival has been acknowledged. One of the reasons the field escalates a signal to greater volume, generating more disruptions and more dramatic repetitions, is because the signal was received but not acknowledged. Recording is a form of acknowledgement. It is saying to the deeper mechanism, I heard this, I am holding it. The third stage is check the emotional resonance. This is the most delicate and most important stage in the protocol. It requires a quality of inner listening that cannot be forced or rushed. It must be done in a moment of relative stillness, not in the middle of a busy day or an emotionally charged conversation. It is best practiced briefly each evening before sleep, or in the first few minutes of quiet in the morning. The question to ask is not, what does this signal mean? The question to ask is, how does this signal feel when I am not trying to understand it? Meaning is a product of the interpreting mind. Resonance is a function of the interior body. They are different instruments, and they measure different things. The interpreting mind can generate meaning from anything. The interior body generates genuine resonance only from what actually corresponds to something real in the field. Resonance has a specific quality. It is felt as a kind of quiet opening, a slight expansion in the chest or the center of the body. It may last only a second before the mind reclaims dominance, but it is unmistakable to the person who has learned to notice it. Its opposite, the closing or contraction that accompanies a false signal or a distortion, is equally specific and equally brief. Learning to distinguish between these two interior responses is the core skill of this third stage, and it is developed through practice over time rather than through a single moment of understanding. The fourth stage is wait for the second and third thread. This stage requires the most patience and is the one most often abandoned prematurely. After noticing an anomaly, recording it, and checking its resonance, the temptation is enormous to immediately begin interpreting, to reach for meaning before the pattern has had time to develop. The protocol is specific on this point. A single thread is not a pattern. 2 threads warrant elevated attention. 3 threads with shared resonance constitute a confirmed signal worthy of contemplative engagement. The waiting of this stage is not passive. It is a specific quality of alert but unhurried attention. You continue to move through your daily life with full engagement while holding a quiet interior awareness that is available to receive the next thread if it arrives. You are not looking for it. You are available to it. The distinction is essential. Looking generates projection. Availability generates reception. The window for waiting is determined by the nature of the signal, not by an arbitrary timeline. Some signals cluster within days, others unfold across weeks. The field does not conform to your preferred schedule. The protocol asks you to hold the thread with open patience for as long as necessary, up to a month or 2, before concluding that the first anomaly was simply a single event with no further development. The 5th stage is avoid forcing meaning. This stage is a prohibition rather than a practice, but it is as essential as any of the active stages. The forcing of meaning is one of the most common and most damaging forms of signal distortion. It occurs when the interpreting mind, unable to tolerate the uncertainty of the open thread, reaches for a specific interpretation and solidifies it before the pattern is complete. Forced meaning sounds like this: I keep seeing doors. This must mean I am about to move. Or, water keeps appearing in my dreams and in my waking life. This means an emotional release is imminent. Or, I've heard this person's name 3 times. This means I should contact them. Each of these interpretations may eventually prove to be accurate. But when they are forced before the pattern is complete, they close the inquiry prematurely and prevent the signal from revealing its fuller, more precise meaning. The practice of avoiding forced meaning requires a specific kind of intellectual humility. It requires you to be willing to hold a question open for longer than is comfortable, to resist the closure that meaning provides, to allow the thread to exist in awareness as a thread, not yet tied to anything, simply held. This tolerance of uncertainty is, counterintuitively, the quality that most clearly marks someone with genuine signal literacy. The 6th and final stage of the protocol is respond with small, aligned action. When the pattern has been confirmed, when the resonance has been checked, when at least 3 threads have appeared and the thematic quality running through them has become clear, the appropriate response is not a dramatic transformation. It is a small, grounded, aligned movement in the direction the pattern is indicating. Small, aligned action might look like this. The pattern has been consistently indicating a particular creative direction. The small aligned action is to spend 30 minutes exploring that direction without commitment, without announcement, and without expectation of outcome. The pattern has been indicating a particular relationship that deserves attention. The small aligned action is to initiate one genuine conversation with that person. The pattern has been indicating that a specific environment no longer matches the interior frequency. The small aligned action is to spend one afternoon in a different environment and note what the interior response is. Small aligned action serves a function that grand gestures cannot. It allows the field to confirm or correct the interpretation without requiring the person to have made an irreversible commitment based on still partial information. The field responds to small aligned action with either confirmation, the sense of rightness, of expansion, of a thread continuing, or with gentle redirection, the sense that the specific action was adjacent to but not precisely on the signal's meaning. Throughout all 6 stages of the Omen thread protocol, there is an underlying principle that governs everything: engagement without attachment. You engage with the signal fully, recording it, checking its resonance, waiting for confirmation, and responding with aligned action. But you hold no attachment to what the signal must mean, where it must lead, or when the shift it points toward must arrive. The attachment corrupts the signal at every stage. The engagement without attachment allows it to remain clear. This protocol was not invented, it was recovered. It exists in various forms across the oldest systems of field literacy. The specific language may differ across traditions and across time, but the underlying sequence, anomaly to record to resonance to confirmation to patience to small response, is the same sequence that genuine signal readers have always followed in every age and every archive that has held this knowledge. Practice this protocol for 30 days, and you will begin to see the difference between the patterns your mind generates and the patterns the field transmits. The difference is palpable once you have developed the sensitivity to feel it. The field's patterns have a coherence and a patience that the mind's constructions do not. They arrive from outside the self and resonate within it, rather than being generated from within and projected outward. Keep the record, hold the thread, wait for 3, and when the pattern is clear, take the smallest step that is genuinely aligned. That step, however small, begins the conscious participation in what the field has already been preparing. The most costly mistake made in the practice of signal reading is the interpretation of every object, every coincidence, and every minor event as a deliberate transmission from the field. This is not signal literacy. It is signal saturation, and it is the fastest way to corrupt the practice. When everything carries meaning, nothing carries meaning. The ability to distinguish signal from background dissolves into a continuous, exhausting, and ultimately meaningless search for confirmation in every corner of the environment. The corrective is not skepticism. It is the application of the filter that the protocol provides. Not everything is a signal. Things become signals through the specific combination of repetition, resonance, and thematic coherence. A single unusual event is not a signal. It is an anomaly that may become the first thread of a signal if it returns. Until it returns, it receives only the lightest acknowledgement and no interpretation. The second mistake is demanding immediate meaning from an incomplete pattern. The mind is deeply uncomfortable with open questions. It will tolerate uncertainty for a short time before reaching for any interpretation that closes the discomfort. But the field does not complete its patterns on the timeline that the impatient mind prefers. Forcing an early interpretation is like reading the first 2 paragraphs of a map and then drawing the rest of the route yourself. The route you draw will be entirely your own invention. It may feel like signal. It is not. The practice of holding the thread open requires active resistance to the closure reflex. Every time the interpreting mind reaches for an early solidification, return to the protocol. Record the thread, check the resonance, wait, allow the field to complete what it has begun before imposing your preferred conclusion. The third mistake is telling everyone about the signal before it has been confirmed. The moment a thread is shared widely, it becomes subject to the interpretive frameworks of everyone who hears it. Other people will project their own symbolic associations, their own preferences, and their own fears onto the thread. The interpretation will begin to be shaped by social influence rather than interior resonance. You will start to hear the thread through other voices rather than through the only instrument that can read it accurately, your own inner recognition. The early period of a signal thread is sacred precisely because of its privacy. Hold it, record it, sit with it. Share it only with someone who has developed genuine signal literacy themselves and who will hold your thread with the same care you are giving it. Share it broadly only after it has been fully confirmed and responded to, when the story can be told rather than the thread still being followed. The fourth mistake is converting subtle guidance into fantasy. This is the failure mode that emerges when the signal reading is disconnected from real-world engagement. A person receives a thread suggesting a creative direction. Rather than taking small aligned action and testing the direction in the field of actual experience, they build an elaborate interior story about the outcome that direction will produce. The signal becomes the raw material for a fantasy that is more satisfying than the actual work of following the thread into reality. Fantasy has a specific quality that distinguishes it from genuine anticipation. Fantasy generates a sense of completion without movement. It provides the emotional satisfaction of a desired outcome without requiring the vulnerability of actual engagement with the real world. It is a kind of subconscious substitute for the aligned action that the signal is asking for. And while the fantasy persists, the actual thread is being abandoned. The field cannot confirm or develop a signal that has been replaced by an interior story rather than engaged with in reality. The fifth mistake is demanding that the signal confirm the preferred outcome. This is projection wearing the clothing of signal literacy. The person decides what they want or what they fear, and then reads every subsequent signal as confirmation of that predetermined conclusion. The field appears to speak with extraordinary clarity and consistency because it is not the field speaking. It is the predetermined conclusion being reflected back from every available surface. The corrective for this mistake is the practice of honest questioning that was introduced in the section on discernment. Would you be equally willing to receive the signal if it pointed in the opposite direction? If not, the practice is compromised by preference. Return to the record. Strip the interpretation from the raw events. Sit with them without the preferred conclusion active. Ask what they might indicate if you had no preference whatsoever. The resulting observation will be significantly closer to what the field is actually transmitting. The sixth mistake is using the protocol to avoid decision. Some people encounter signal literacy and convert it into a sophisticated form of avoidance. They cannot decide whether to stay or leave, pursue or release, commit or withdraw, and so they wait for signs. They are always waiting for one more confirmation, one more thread, one more signal to emerge before they will act. The protocol becomes a reason to remain in suspension indefinitely. This is a distortion of the method. The protocol is not designed to make decisions for you. It is designed to provide additional information for decisions that you are ready to make. If you are using the protocol as a reason to avoid making a decision you already know you need to make, the protocol has been recruited into avoidance. The appropriate response is to acknowledge what you already know and make the decision from that knowing, rather than seeking more external confirmation for something your interior has already clearly communicated. The seventh mistake is abandoning the practice after a false signal. Everyone who develops signal literacy will, at some point, follow a thread that leads nowhere or that turns out to have been a distortion rather than a genuine transmission. The temptation at that point is to conclude that the entire practice is unreliable, that signs are not real, and that the field does not communicate through pattern. This is an overcorrection. A single false signal does not invalidate the practice. It refines it. Every false signal you recognize as such and release builds your discernment. Every interpretation that proves incorrect teaches you something specific about the particular form of distortion you are most susceptible to. The practice grows stronger through the acknowledgement of its failures, not through the pretense that every signal was accurate. A signal reader who claims 100% accuracy in retrospect is not a skilled practitioner. They are a revisionist. The eighth mistake is treating every obstacle as a redirectional signal. The protocol is clear that persistent, repeated, thematically coherent obstacles constitute a signal pattern. A single obstacle, or even two obstacles that could be explained by ordinary circumstances, does not necessarily constitute a redirectional signal. Sometimes an obstacle is simply an obstacle that requires problem solving rather than a spiritual response. Treating every difficulty as a cosmic message is another form of the saturation error, and it leads to passivity when engaged action is precisely what is needed. Discernment here requires the same patience that the protocol requires in positive signal reading. A single obstacle warrants engaged problem solving. A second obstacle of the same quality warrants the beginning of elevated attention. A third obstacle that shares the thematic quality of the previous two warrants the check of genuine resonance and the consideration of whether the field is indicating a redirection. The escalation from obstacle to signal requires the same three-appearance confirmation that applies to all other forms of signal. Signal literacy, when it has been practiced long enough to become a genuine perceptual capacity rather than a technique applied consciously, begins to reveal itself in every domain of life with a depth that early practice cannot access. This section is for those who have moved beyond the introductory engagement with the protocol and are ready to apply hidden signal reading to the larger territories of their experience. In life transitions of any kind, whether career, location, relationship, or identity, signal literacy functions as the most precise navigational instrument available. The transition that is genuinely aligned with the deeper pattern of a person's becoming will announce itself through the preparatory sequence long before the practical decision arrives. The person skilled in reading that sequence will arrive at the threshold of the transition already softened, already oriented, already holding the frequency of what is approaching. The transition is not easier because of this, but it is navigated with a quality of grounded clarity rather than panicked improvisation. In creative direction, the hidden signal is perhaps the most intimate and most frequently ignored instrument available. Creative people often speak of inspiration as though it arrives fully formed, suddenly and without warning. But closer examination consistently reveals a preparatory sequence, the images that kept appearing, the emotional state that kept arising, the specific memories that kept surfacing, the genre, medium, or form that kept generating an inexplicable pull. The creative work that eventually emerges is often the culmination of a signal sequence that began weeks or months before the work itself. Developing signal literacy as a creative practice means training the attention to notice and record what arrives in the preparatory phase before a creative project fully declares itself. The signals will often indicate the true emotional center of what the work needs to address, not what the conscious creative intention has decided it will be about, but what is actually pressing for expression beneath the surface. Following those signals produces work of a different caliber than following conscious intention alone. In matters of love and significant relationship, signal literacy requires a different quality of patience than it does in other domains. The emotional charge of love creates conditions ideal for projection and distortion. The desire to see confirmation of a desired connection will color every signal read within that field. Advanced practice requires the honest application of the discernment tools with particular rigor in the relational domain, precisely because the emotional stakes make projection most tempting here. The genuine signal in the relational field carries a quality that distinguishes it from projection and wishful reading. It does not flatter. It does not confirm the fantasy of a perfect outcome. It informs. It indicates compatibility of frequency, not the promise of ease. It shows where the genuine resonance lives and also where the friction lives with equal clarity. The person practicing advanced signal literacy in love receives information about the actual nature of a connection, including what will be required, not only what is desired. In decisions about relocation and physical environment, hidden signals are often the most practical and the most overlooked navigational tool. The place that keeps appearing in the mind without apparent cause is not idle imagination. The specific quality of longing generated by a type of landscape, a kind of city, a particular climate, is the subconscious recognizing a frequency in the physical environment that matches something within the interior. These signals, when followed with patience and the full application of the protocol, often lead to relocations that feel both surprising and inevitable upon arrival. The physical environment is not a neutral backdrop to the experience of a life. It is a resonance field. The quality of what a place generates in the interior body is a form of signal data. Advanced practice includes developing sensitivity to what different environments do to the interior state, not through preference or comfort alone, but through the deeper question of what specific quality of self becomes available in each environment and whether that quality corresponds to what the interior is being prepared to express. In the domain of spiritual awakening and spiritual timing, signal literacy reveals its most profound application. Spiritual shifts do not arrive on demand. They arrive when the interior conditions have reached a specific threshold of readiness, and they announce their approach through the preparatory sequence with particular vividness. The signal pattern preceding a significant spiritual shift often includes unusual clarity in dreams, a quality of restlessness that cannot be addressed by ordinary means, an inexplicable falling away of frameworks that previously felt stable, and a simultaneous attraction to ideas, teachings, and practices that were previously of no interest. Advanced application here means holding these signals without attempting to force the shift they precede. A spiritual awakening that is forced by technique, by performance, or by the desperate desire to arrive is not a genuine opening. It is the ego staging an arrival it can control. The genuine shift arrives when the field determines that the interior conditions are sufficient. The practice is to cooperate with the preparatory sequence by clearing the space it is opening, not by demanding that the opening accelerate beyond its own timing. In the domain of long-term integration, the most advanced application of signal literacy is learning to read the signals that follow a completed shift. Most people assume that the signal sequence ends when the change has arrived. In fact, what follows a completed shift is a new and more refined sequence of signals, the field beginning the next stage of preparation. The person who understands this does not arrive at a new chapter and settle into it with the assumption that the navigation is complete. They continue to hold the same quality of alert but unhurried attention, knowing that the preparatory mechanism is already at work on what comes next. The deepest form of advanced practice is the cultivation of what might be called signal fluency, the point at which reading the hidden signal is no longer a technique applied consciously, but a natural and continuous quality of engagement with reality. At this stage, the protocol does not need to be consciously invoked at each step. The recording happens naturally. The resonance check happens in real time. The patience is not effortful, but is the ordinary quality of the interior state. The small aligned response arises without the need for deliberation. This is the state toward which all the practice points. Not a state of permanent certainty or continuous confirmation, but a state of genuine conversation with the field. A two-way relationship in which you receive what is transmitted, process it with honesty and patience, respond with aligned action, and receive the field's response to that action as the next layer of the ongoing communication. This is not mysticism. It is the most practical relationship with reality available to a human being who has learned to listen at the right register. Return for a moment to the forest. The red thread still lies across the path. The traveler has passed through this forest before without understanding what the thread meant. He stepped over it, around it, and on some days walked a wider arc to avoid the mild discomfort of its presence, that inexplicable sense that something here was meant to be noticed. He did not know then what this codex holds. He did not know that the thread was connected to a bell. He did not know that the bell was tied to a future that was already in motion, already being arranged by a field that had begun its preparatory sequence long before he arrived at this specific coordinate on this specific morning. He knows now, and the knowing changes nothing about the thread. It is still thin. It is still quiet. It is still easy to miss for anyone who is looking past it at the noise and drama of the path ahead. But it changes everything about how he stands at this moment, feeling the particular quality of stillness that comes from understanding that the smallest signal can precede the largest turning. The thread was not blocking his path. This is the correction the codex completes. He had always experienced threads as obstructions, as minor inconveniences that interrupted the forward momentum he believed he was supposed to maintain. But the thread was never blocking him. It was connecting him. It was a filament of the field's preparatory mechanism, installed precisely at the point where his attention needed to rest, quietly announcing a direction that his surface mind had not yet thought to look toward. Every thread you have walked over without noticing is still connected to where it was leading. The field does not withdraw its signals because they were missed once. It reissues them in slightly different forms at slightly different moments with slightly increased resonance until the receiver is calibrated to receive. This is not a record of your failures to notice. It is a testament to the patience of the mechanism. The bell has been ringing for as long as the preparation has been in motion. The question now is only whether you are positioned to hear it. What you carry out of this library today is not simply an awareness of omens and signals. It is the recovered understanding that reality has been in conversation with you for the entire duration of your life. Every moment of unexplained restlessness, every recurring image that arrived without an invitation, every door that refused to open despite your reasonable and sincere effort to open it, every name that surfaced 3 times from 3 directions in a week, every dream that left its emotional residue into the afternoon. These were not noise. They were letters in a language you now have a key for reading. If this codex found you at the right time, keep it close. Return to it when the signals become numerous and the thread becomes difficult to follow without losing it. The thread in the forest is still there. The bell is still connected. And miles ahead, something is still waiting for the signal to be received, held, confirmed, and followed with the small and patient steps of someone who has finally learned to read what reality has always been writing.